Here is Arman. Arman is taking English lessons at school. He is working very hard on all the given tasks. Arman accurately completes grammar tasks and writing assignments, passages on vocabulary, and always submits this task on time. But at the end of the class, Arman is shocked to receive a satisfactory grade. Arman has no idea why he got this satisfactory grade and doesn't know what can be done to improve the situation. Obviously, he was not provided clarity and understanding while completing the tasks. Without any comments and responses, he couldn't correct his past mistakes nor learn from them. Any development in his personal growth were impossible because he was not aware of the progressing in a positive way. Arman is very confused by getting this grade. How would he have known he wasn't meeting teacher's standard without any explanations through the lessons? How can Arman start moving ahead and change the situation?
The answer is obvious. To provide him a feedback, one of the approaches in learning route which will help the learner to succeed. I am Makанова А. I teach English at Nazarbayev Intellectual School of Physics and Mathematics in Astana. The aim of today's presentation is to identify the aspects that make feedback more effective and powerful. I expect that by the end of the presentation, you will distinguish feedback timing, recognize amount of feedback, differentiate feedback mode and audience. The presentation is based on the lessons of the 8th grade. The topic is our world relation with the family. Feedback is considered an integrated part of learning process that plays a significant role in students' education. It is a very important component of this formative assessment process. Formative assessment gives information to teachers and students about how students are doing relative to classroom learning goals. From the student's point of view, the formative assessment script reads like this: what knowledge or skills do I am to develop? How close am I now? What do I need to do next? Giving good feedback is one of the skills teachers need to master as part of good formative assessment. Feedback can be very powerful. Good feedback gives students information they need so they can understand where they are in their learning and what to do next. Once they feel they understand what to do and why, most students develop a feeling that they have control over their own learning. Good feedback contains information that the students can use, which means that the student has to be able to hear and understand it. But there are other questions. When to give feedback? How much feedback should be provided at a time? What form should be used when providing comments? How many students should be involved into feedback at a time? According to Bruchard, feedback strategies can vary in several dimensions: timing, amount, mode, and audience. And today we are going to look at each of these. Now you are going to watch a video. While watching, answer the following questions. To what extent the given feedback is appropriate, useful, and can help students in their learning?
Here is the class. The teacher is going to discuss the results of students' works that they passed 2 weeks ago. Students, I would like to present the feedback on your stories about a person you admire.
Person I admire? What is she talking about?
Why has she decided to speak about a person?
But what topic do we study? I suppose natural disasters? What's the relation between these two topics?
You managed to organize your ideas logically. Why don't students listen to the teacher? To what extent her feedback is appropriate and useful?
Yes, this feedback is the most ineffective. Why? because it presents outdated information and children won't react positively. That is why timing is one of the main aspects when organizing and presenting feedback. Presented video is about bad timing, delaying the return of students' works. It often happens when students ask the teacher about the results of their works. Even we can remember those times at school when we thought, is she ever going to give back that quiz? I inspire you to remember those incidents and the feelings of frustration and of being ignored, and use a habit to return your students' works on time without delay. It should be your regular practice to do that, and students should know it and be able to count on it. If students do experience regular, timely feedback, they will most likely to be understanding if an emergency arises and you take longer than usual to return an assignment. The aim of presenting immediate or only slightly delayed feedback is to help students hear it and use it. Feedback needs to come while students are still mindful of the topic, assignment, or performance in question. It needs to come while they still think of the learning goal. Yesterday, you wrote the test, the quiz on topic Our World, and today we are going to discuss the results. I have found that you could distinguish weak and strong adjectives and know how to strengthen weak adjectives also. Probably the hardest decision to make about feedback is the amount to provide. Usually teachers are inclined to fix everything they see. This is teacher's eye view, where the purpose is perfect achievement of all learning objectives. However, for real learning, that makes the difference is a usable amount of information that connects with something students already know and takes them from that point to the next level. Next presentation gives examples of good and bad choices about how much feedback to give, and the following paragraphs illustrate the point. This is the example of bad amount focusing only on mechanics. It usually happens when teachers incline to highlight errors related to mechanics, spelling, and grammar, forgetting about the points of the writing process: paragraphing, argumenting, communicating. We all know teachers whose first inclination would be to use a contrasting color pen. Red, of course, is the favorite, and fix the mechanics. Of course, it is important a teacher should identify these grammar or spelling mistakes and then organize the lesson focusing on the errors. But in this writing, argumenting and communicating are more important. If a teacher marks every grammatical, mechanical, and spelling mistake in the writing passage, the amount of pen marks can, and often does, overwhelm students. This can lead to the ignorance of the feedback because there is no way for them to enter the dialogue. It is much easier to call themselves a bad writer and simply hope the next paper turns out better. The learning objectives should be also taken into account. If we look through the learning objectives for this writing passage, we will see that they focus much on organizing ideas in appropriate ways. But assessment of the passage doesn't say anything about it. To your opinion, would this work help a student to move further in his learning process, improving his writing skills? Is it understandable for him? Moreover, if a student receives such sort of assessment often, he or she can give up. Your feedback should give students a clear understanding of what to do next on a point or points that they can see they need to work on. This requires you to know your students. For some students, simply getting clarity and improvement on one point would be sufficient, whereas others can handle more. Now we are going to look through the students' work with examples of comments a teacher might give. The student work in this presentation is a work of one of the 8th grade students. The task is typical to describe people. The task of the paper relates to the topic Our World, relation with the family. The goal of the task is to present the ability to use adjectives of describing people and be able to justify the ideas. When thinking of good amount, always use the Goldilocks principle that says not too much, not too little, but just right. The student work in this presentation is a work of one of the 8th grade students. The task is typical to describe people. The task of the paper relates to the topic Our World, relation with the family. The goal of the task is to present the ability to use adjectives of describing people and be able to justify the ideas. This paragraph is not optimal 8th grade work. However, the first and the most important thing to point out is that the paragraph is clear and makes sense. There are a lot of adjectives that describe a person. That's true and it's noteworthy. Probably the next main response to this as a piece of writing is that it is simple. It doesn't have much detail and students should think how to justify that these people have these qualities. If the reader cannot understand what the writer is trying to tell in his/her passage, only then the goal of the writing is lost. But this passage managed to establish the communication, as when reading, you can easily understand the content. An initial feedback comment might be this. Having this feedback, a student can improve his writing skills. So, before organizing feedback, a teacher should always keep in the mind that time when to provide feedback to students is crucial. Students should receive feedback while they are still mindful of the learning goal and while there is still time for them to make changes. Act on it, and only then it can influence their learning process positively. Good example of feedback timing is to return a test or assignment the following day, to give immediate oral responses to questions of fact, and to give immediate oral responses to student misunderstandings. When giving feedback, teachers should avoid returning a test or assignment 2 weeks after it is completed, ignoring errors or misconceptions, thereby implying acceptance, going over a test or assignment when the unit is over and there is no opportunity to show improvement. Amount is also an integrated part of feedback that influences its effectiveness. When thinking about how much to give, a teacher should remember selecting 2 or 3 main parts about a paper for comment, giving feedback on important learning aims, commenting on at least as many strengths as weaknesses. So, a teacher should always balance positive and negative comments. But when presenting feedback, teachers should always avoid returning a student's paper with every error in mechanics edited, writing comments on a paper that are more voluminous than the paper itself, writing voluminous comments on poor quality papers, and almost nothing on good quality papers. Because the goal of amount feedback is students should get enough feedback so that they understand what to do, but not so much that the work has been done for them. Students should get feedback on teachable points, but not an overwhelming number. Your feedback is good when your students become more motivated, they believe they can learn, they want to learn, and they take more control over their own learning.
Okay, here are 3 sentences. These 3 sentences were taken from your writing papers. I would like you to look through these sentences and analyze and correct if necessary. Look through. Is everything okay with these sentences?
We must write a teacher.
A teacher.
Yes.
Okay, so why?
Yes, because she's one.
Because she is one. Okay, anything else?
And also a teacher is a countable noun.
Okay, nice. What does it mean, countable? Who can explain?
We can count.
We can count. So, do you have any examples? Can you give any examples?
1 pen, 2 pens.
A table, many tables.
Okay, so you are quite right. And I would like to add some more information about it, yes? And imagine, there are a huge number of teachers over the world, yes? And she is one of the representatives of these teachers. She is one of many, yes? Okay, what about the second sentence? What about the second, Temiris?
A beautiful girl, because there are many beautiful girls, but Anna is one of them.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. So, can you explain the third sentence?
In the third sentence there is a singer because it is a countable noun and she wants to be one of many.
Okay, nice. Great example. You are quite right. So, good analysis. When I checked your writing, I found out that all of you make mistakes on usage of article. Now work with your papers. Again, look through your writings and identify the words where you should use articles a or n. Look through and analyze. Okay? So let's start.
I like your presentation in written form, and I think that it is very clear one. Your ideas organized in a logical way, and also I like that you have used such adjectives that describe personal qualities. Yeah, kind-hearted, clever, polite, great. But why do you think that your parents are kind-hearted?
Because they always can help you in some trouble, and they cares about everything.
Okay, great. This idea should be included here. Why do you think your parents are clever?
Because they can give you good advice.
Okay, nice. And you says that your sister is polite. Why do you consider her as a polite person?
Because she always smile and she has and she
Okay. What about great sense of style? You say that she has great sense of style.
She wears smart clothes.
Okay, great. That you understand why you have used these words, but I, as a reader, haven't understood. Can you support these ideas with justification that you have just presented?
Okay.
Today we reviewed the main points of feedback and have come to the understanding that timing and amount are really important when presenting feedback and make it effective. Next seminar, we are going to continue our discussion of other aspects in feedback field. Goodbye.